we're looking at this task sheet here, and I know that I've done the lights down. It's really, really important that you buy in and you have a go at this task sheet because, like I said, you're only going to get one more opportunity before the rubber hits the road. It's worth 20% of your final grade. Regardless of whether you like that, love that, or hate that, it doesn't make any difference. This assessment item will be worth 20% of your grade when you walk into Year 12. So the more exposure you can have, the better, and that's why we've set this up. Yep. In Year 12. So not this task here, the corresponding task at St Pat's or wherever you go to school in senior. If you choose to do physics, chemistry or biology, you will have a research investigation worth 20%. You will have a student investigation, which is like what we've done already, the pracs. That's worth 20%. You'll have a data test, which we've done, worth 10%. And then you'll sit your final exam, which is worth 50%. So the way this works is, and this will be very, very similar to the style in which you get your assessment in senior. The only thing that will change on the basically the way it's set up, in Year 12 you'll have 1,500 words, I believe, and the context will change. So what you're writing on. But everything else about the task will be very much the same. So if you've done too well, by the time you do the one that matters, you'll find it's a lot easier. And it's very difficult to get these sort of experiences. So I'd seriously suggest if you're going to buy in for one piece of assessment, this is probably the one to do it. You've had 2 cracks at the student investigation, that's great, we're not going to touch those again. This is similar, but it's different. And let's talk about firstly the context in which we're writing about, and then we'll talk about how we're going to go about writing it. So the context, you are going to pick 2 claims. I want you to be very clear, not research question, 1 of 2 claims. You've got the option of asking me if you can do another one, and I'll approve it or disapprove it. You have 2 claims to look at. I've tried to keep it nice and simple. Your 2 claims are nuclear power should be the main source of energy source in Australia. That's the first claim. And the second claim is that nuclear power is a safe energy source. To be successful in this report, you then need to generate a research question. So a research question is something to base your entire investigation about. It needs to be specific, and I'll say this over and over and over again, it needs to be specific. Your research question cannot be whether or not nuclear power is safe. Is that specific? What does safety mean? What does it mean? Tell me what's safe. Is it number of lives lost? Is it the risk of nuclear weaponry? Is it greenhouse emissions? These are all elements of safety that you need to investigate. If you're going to talk about should be the main source of energy, well, how much is the main source? Should we go completely to nuclear? Should we go partially to nuclear? Are we talking about the cost? Are we talking about the energy output? What are we talking about? So you need to be super, super specific when you're creating your research question. I'll say this again. You need to be super, super specific when you are writing your research question. I cannot stress that enough. When we go through the criteria sheet, you will see why that is important. Okay, and the criteria sheet looks a little bit different. I'll talk about that later as well. What do we do when we do a when we do a student investigation? What's the general process? Rationale. You change your method, you get a method, you change it, you do some testing, you collect your data, you analyse your data, you say what this means, correct? Research investigation is similar in that we're looking to do the same sort of thing, but we're not doing an investigation. Look, you're not going to get a little nuclear power plant here to see how safe it is. That's not how it's going to happen. How do you think we're going to do our
rationale, analysis, evaluation, and conclusion?
Very good. Where are we going to get information for our rationale? Because we're not doing an experiment, right, are we? So where's that going to come from?
Sources that we find.
Sources that we find. Should that data be qualitative, quantitative, or a mixture of both? Mixture of both. Is it more important to have quantitative or qualitative data in there? Quantitative. You need some numerical values to work with. If you're going to make statements about safety or cost or efficiency or various other things, if you want to convince someone, and I mean seriously convince them, you need to give them some numerical analysis as to why that's the case. Cool? This information, it's not going to come from Tyler's nuclear blog. Tyler's got really good ideas and he's sitting at home with his colander on his head. He's got some really good ideas about nuclear science and 5G and flat earth and all that sort of stuff. So we're going to take Tyler's ideas. Great idea, right? Geez, I hope Mr. Beddington passes me. What do you need to make sure you're doing? Referencing and identifying that your sources are reliable and reputable. There are databases, there are all sorts of things that you can use to find reputable information. Why is that particularly important on these topics?
If they're misunderstood, your opinion would be one varies greatly.
Yep, so you putting false information down and information that's not correct completely destroys the integrity of your assessment and your statements. What else? Do you find that many people when you walk down the street are passionate about the wavelength of light? Do you find people that are passionate about that? When I drive around Mackay or when I drive around various things, I'll see things like stop coal, or I'll see things about the value of nuclear power and nuclear weapons and all that sort of stuff. The majority of people have an opinion on these topics. So you need to be very, very careful when you're taking information about nuclear power that is coming from a reputable site, because there will be plenty of fake news, as they call it, thrown around. So you need to make sure you're getting it from government sites, databases, scientific journals, those sorts of places. Clear? All right, so let's talk about the process, and I'm going to, so down the bottom of the first page. Oh, sorry, you got to follow research conventions. I forgot to mention that. So you do need bibliography, you need to have references. Anytime you're taking information, what should you be doing? In-text referencing, making sure that when you take, so like in your research phase, don't just jot stuff down without acknowledging where you've got it from. If you're going to do that on Google Docs, make sure you've got a hyperlink. If you're going to do that in your book, make sure you're writing down author name so you can bring that up later on. Sweet. All right, let's go through what you need to do. So the first thing you need to do is select a claim to be evaluated. Okay, so the first thing you need to do is to identify which one of those claims do I like, do I think I can talk about. They're both, there's no easy or short option. They've both got plenty of depth and plenty of things to talk about.